Welcome to our 60-second monthly Zoom presentation. As we embark on our 6th year of Zoom SCA presentations, we can all be very proud of the amazing library of recordings that we are building. It's truly a testament to the diversity of the roadside. I'm Brian Gallagher, President of the Society for Commercial Archaeology, and proud to be your host for tonight. Welcome to all our guests and any new people we have with us tonight. We're happy you took the time to watch an SCA presentation. I hope you enjoy the show. And for anybody watching the recording of this episode of the SCA's monthly presentations who's not a member of the SCA, we earnestly ask you to consider joining. Funding for the various activities of the SCA comes almost exclusively from our membership. Just visit our website at www.sca-roadside.org and follow the links. Now I have the pleasure of introducing our presenter. Marcia Bricker Halperin is a lifelong Brooklynite and has been photographing the character and landscape of New York City since the 1970s. Her debut book of photographs, Kibbitz and Nosh, When We All Met at Dubrow's Cafeteria, was published by Cornell University Press in the spring of 2023. Step back into the nostalgia and grit of 1970s New York City through poignant black and white photographs of the self-service restaurants that provided nourishment in more ways than food for a generation. Halperin's images include portraits of customers and of workers. Other photographs captured the mid-century atmosphere of the eatery's graceful and ultra-modernist interiors. Gossip, lipstick, powder puffs, cigars, kerchiefs, fedoras, and leopard pattern coats, all the cafeteria's denizens' accoutrements for dining on gefilte fish, kasha varnishkas, rice pudding, or blintzes are here. Marcia Bricker Halperin, a lifelong Brooklynite, has been photographing since 1970. Since retiring from an education career, she's been scanning and printing large bodies of unseen negatives from her archives. Her photography has been included in many group shows, including at the Brooklyn Museum and the International Center of Photography, and in a recent solo exhibition at the Edward Hopper House Museum. Her debut book of photographs, Kibbitz and Nosh, When We All Met at Dubrow's Cafeteria, is published by Cornell University Press in the spring of 2023. Marcia, would you please come forward to give us your presentation?
Hello, everybody. Hope you're cool wherever you are. I see some friends and a lot of new faces. So thank you for joining me tonight. What a wonderful group this society is. I watched, the trips and the presentation, such a unique group. And so it's a delight to be sharing my photographs with you tonight. So, those people you're looking at, I'm looking at you right now, are some of the denizens of Dubrow's that I hung out with back in the 70s. Some of them, I know their names and their life stories because they shared it with me. They sang old vaudeville songs to me. They asked, why are you taking my picture, and then they were just happy for me to do that. Some of them were making tomato soup with hot water and ketchup on the table, and some were probably, well, who knows? They all got dressed up, put on their hats, and did their hair and came to Dubrow's. So a little background. New York, and actually the whole country, but particularly the big cities, were filled with cafeterias. Women were now working. People were, after the Depression, well, they weren't quite ready for restaurants and tipping and all that, but they liked a cafeteria and they liked to feel special. So going out to a place like the Astor or the Biltmore or the Regal cafeteria, yes, you carried your own tray, but these were very, very opulent surroundings. They were cavernous and big cafeterias, and some very well decorated. So here's some matchbooks from just a few of the big ones that were in New York. And down in the corner, Dubrow's, that wonderful typography. and the Trilon and Perisphere, because 1939, that was the big deal in New York. So they put it on their matchbook. So I'm going to start at the end of my cafeteria story. This was a very poignant night, the closing of the Dubrow's Cafeteria in 1985. This was the one in the Garment District, 7th Avenue and 38th Street. They put up a big sign in the window: to all our valued customers, thank you for the years of patronage. We serve 50 million meals. I don't know, were they counting? But sorry, we're going. Maybe we can open a retail shop, and you're going to buy frozen Dubrow's Cafeteria kashavanishkas, but that never occurred. By the 80s, New York was changing hands, real estate. It was supposed to be a garage. It was supposed to be torn down. It's actually a food court now. So things have come full circle. But of course, the neon signs were blazing out into the streets of New York, welcoming people in for a hearty meal or just a cup of coffee, where you can sit for hours in a very nice setting and chat and maybe meet some people, make new friends. But I grew up in Brooklyn, Flatbush, around Kings Highway. And my Dubrow's, it was a chain. There were 4 over time. The first one on Eastern Parkway in Brooklyn, the second one in my neighborhood on Kings Highway that you're looking at now. Then they had one in, of course, Miami Beach, because that's where the Jews were going in the winter, and I guess they wanted a cafeteria there, and the family liked Florida, so why not? And then the last one in the Garment District. So I was an art major in college, and not very good at drawing, painting, sculpture, any of it, but really interested in art. But when I took my first photography course, I thought that was the coolest thing. I had a camera that my father got me at Willoughby's in New York. And I was fashioned that I was going to be a young street photographer. And so I'm out there on Kings Highway. And of course, I'm taking pictures in windows. And as a young art student, reflections were very appealing. So I like that Dubrow's was repeated. My reflection is even in this picture, if you had a magnifying glass. And this man was as if on a stage. The curtains opened and he was just gazing out into the world. So I haven't been inside the cafeteria yet. Okay, hold your breath. I'm just on the street. That's where the people are, the stores, and I wanted to catch these moments. There was a train that ran just to the side over this cafeteria, and I love the idea of shooting up and shooting down. This was something that a lot of the photographers were doing at the time. I was emulating them. One day at the beginning, that same window just to the side, I saw this scene and took the photo, not really realizing when I took it all that was going on and how it would become kind of a little bit iconic. People tend to know this photo. So there's this woman inside the cafeteria clutching her ticket. The ticket's very important. And she's wearing that Fair Isle sweater. And how fortuitous that a checker cab with that same pattern was in the taxi stand right behind me. Okay, so that's one level of reflection. Then inside the cafeteria, there's a mirror all the way across on the other side. It's reflecting the street back and other things. So you have all these people going on. And of course, you have this guy on the left side telling his friend, whatever, but give him a piece of his mind. which was kind of what Dubrow's was about. Kibitzing, what does it really mean? It means chatting, gossiping, gently noodling somebody, needling, I guess that's the better term. Speaking your mind a little bit, but in a gentle, friendly kind of way. And so that gentleman on the side is, looks like a great kibitzer. I've received emails over the years from people. They claim this is their Aunt Rose, and she was waiting for her sister, who probably went to with her tray to get her food. Who knows? People have told me that the kibitzer is their Uncle Nick. Who knows? But that shows me that a lot of people are looking close and at least identifying family members in the pictures. So this one's a little confusing. It's a detail of a photograph way up close. I'm still outside. I haven't gone inside. All those heads that you see are inside the cafeteria. All there, the woman with the chignon and the contemplative women, people wore their hats. And up in the right, you can see my hand, my fingers, and the camera, clutching my Pentax camera, which was a very popular street photographer camera, the Pentax 1000. Now, this is a manual camera. I'm focusing, I'm adjusting aperture, shutter speed, it's metal. I'm not wearing gloves, of course. There's no digital screen and with a finger that I could, wear a glove and touch. And it's winter at this point. I remember it was college, it was intersession, February, and I'm out in the streets photographing with this camera. And lo and behold, one day, my fingers froze, the camera froze up, and I went through the revolving doors of Dubrow's Cafeteria and took my ticket from Hyman Kornblum, Mr. Kornblum, who worked there until he was 92, giving out the tickets. A very important job, the most important job. Wouldn't you like to have 2 tickets? Pull them out of the machine, and it made a little ka-ching, but if you did it fast, you got like 1.5 ka-chings. And you have 2 tickets. On one, you can get it punched because the people at the counter had a punch thing. And you can just punch in 25 cents for your cup of coffee. On the other one ticket, you can have a whole chicken dinner and then pocket that ticket. So the tickets were very important. People clutched them, held on to them. You don't want to lose your ticket. You don't want somebody else maybe, walking off with your ticket when you turned your head. It was a safe environment, but people were very protective of their tickets. One of the first photos I took towards the back of the cafeteria was of this woman. And that was a big deal for me to confront somebody and in a way and say, I'd really like to take your photograph. I assume, if I remember correctly, okay, it's 1975. I don't remember. But I imagine I said, can I take your picture? What struck me so much that I was driven to ask her was this, first of all, the New York Times, back in those days, it was almost a broadsheet. It was the length of a table. Now we get it delivered and it's, it's almost the size of a small magazine. So it's this wonderful spread of the newspaper draped over this still life of bottles and ashtray on the table. The man with the Madras jacket, those were popular back then on the right. A little piece of the mural on another side of the image. A little touch of leopard skin hanging from the coat rack, because leopard skin was the favorite back in Dubrow's. I loved her wavy dress. It seemed to echo the wave of the newspaper. And then right framed by this coat rack is that regal face. How could you go wrong? And I'm so happy she didn't smile. She just gave me this incredible gaze, into the camera. So I was hooked into taking portraits inside of the cafeteria, which I did for many years to come after that. I went at all times of day, in the morning, in the afternoon. I love taking pictures of the people against this incredible mural, like a biblical scene, and, you know, giant fruit, this giant turkey, you know, plentiful. A lot of the people who went there had lived through the Depression, and I'm sure that, you know, this was kind of to be in a restaurant where it had a 100-foot counter with every conceivable food, and then this mural of plenty on the other wall must have given them a very secure feeling to be here. And this gentleman, I don't know if he was just resting his eyes or just taking a little nap, since he felt so comfortable in the cafeteria. So the decor of this place, I think, was really part of the attraction. This huge swoosh on the ceiling, I just loved. It also was a nightmare to photograph people against it. But in this particular case, I feel that it framed, kind of enveloped these two figures well. The swoosh echoed a little bit his curve in his cheek. It was very hard. I never liked taking pictures of people while they were eating, because their faces would be not in a great position. And thank heavens, as you'll see in the pictures, a lot of people didn't eat at the cafeteria. They just spent hours sitting there reading or hanging out. But, you know, they did. I think he was having a roll and coffee, the classic, you know, roll with Kaiser roll with butter and coffee, and that great hat. And she's got this wonderful coat. She's clutching her ticket, probably just had her hair done. So I assume the picture was taken like on the weekend, because, you know, you'd have your hair done on Friday and the women wouldn't wear hats on the weekend. But wait, when you got towards like Thursday of the following week, the hats came on. So this was one evening, and I was just walking out of the cafeteria. Wonderful cigarette machine. Now, understand, these were the days everybody was smoking there. There would be, like, in the mornings when the light was coming in, you'd see a cloud of smoke hanging in the air. But so here these women were, I don't know, maybe they had gone to, they used to have these evening dances, parents without partners, and they used to, you know, come to Dubrow's after to talk about their evenings with their friends. And I just loved all that, you know, the hairstyles all lined up and reflected in the mirror. And again, using the mirror was a little bit of a nightmare, you know, because, yeah, I had to control it. But in this picture, I liked that it amplified, you know, it looks like an entire crowd of women. And then that one iconic woman with her frosted hair and her platform shoes. And you can see in the background that the gentleman who's leaning on his hand is the nighttime ticket guy. At one point, this cafeteria was open 24 hours a day. Pretty remarkable. That stopped in the late 70s, though. So I went in the morning, and at this point, I'm really trying to learn my skills in photography, how to manage light. And it had this wonderful curtain, and I liked when it was drawn because I didn't have that contrast to deal with. And then I could get the reflection on the oil and vinegar bottles, his cigar. There was a lot of cigar smoking also, you know, and the reflected light off the table or off of whatever he's reading, probably the daily racing form, if I remember correctly. The place was very popular with people who were handicapping the horses. And in contrast, this gentleman, you know, this real old world profile, this with his hat. And so he's reading the foreword, the Yiddish newspaper. And this is a photo, I really love this one now because I didn't print it back in the 70s. It's something that I just discounted as as not really an interesting picture or important. And then when I finally scanned the negative and, blew it up and it appeared on the computer screen, I saw that underneath the forward is the New York Times. So this is a gentleman that to me felt like he was in, the old and the new. And I feel like time, a very strong sense of time in this picture. And then I noticed on his watch, the keeper that holds the strap, unfurling. And maybe I'm reading too much poetically, but to me, it's like a passage of time, this photo. And in the back, there was a great water fountain, seltzer, water in a glass, it's a great place to go and get a glass of water and then sit for another hour in the cafeteria. And when this woman was getting her glass of water, I says, "Can I take your picture?" Same way as that other woman. And then she struck this pose, as if on also a stage. And that was kind of fun. On Sunday afternoons, people would get very dressed up. On Saturday nights, they wore their mink stoles. But I love that this woman, such attention to details. I love the light on the pearls. I love that, the extra hair piece, the rosettes on her dress. Everything about her was very elegant, and this was, I guess, people ask me about taking pictures of older people. At the same time, I was photographing my grandmother. So I did, I guess, at the time, and I'm in my early 20s, have an affinity for photographing older people. And there were plenty of them at Dubrow's, as you see. But there were young people too. And this is a couple that when I used to go in at night, I used to kind of situate myself in the middle. And of course, these people invited me over to sit and hang with them. And he's kibitzing her and kind of whatever, being kind of trying to be kind of macho and whatever. And so I situated myself with them. Now, I didn't use a flash ordinarily in the cafeteria, but in this picture, I did use a flash because they knew me and I took a picture. Whenever I would take a flash, it would draw too much attention, or people would say, "Oh, is there going to be a blackout?" Because that had happened in the 70s. They thought that the flash was like the lights flickering. So I situated myself in the middle at this table, and some of them were these young Israeli men who came and they drove car service and different things, and they hung out there at night. And this was the summer, and I remember one of them in particular. It was the summer of Son of Sam in New York. New York was pretty dangerous back then. And I had to walk home with my camera late at night. And there was a guy who used to make sure that he'd walk me home. Yes, maybe he wanted to date me, but I was all business at Dubrow's. I was there to photograph, not to meet anybody. And I'm glad I stuck to photographing. In the middle of this photo, you can see me taking a picture. And I like these two men because they were just like, this is home to them. I'll put my feet up on the chair, one cup of coffee between them, they're smoking, they're hanging out. And it shows that I'm just like situated in the middle, photographing different directions. And then also I would walk around. I'd move to different tables and everybody was moving around. It was like a big party. A friend took this, David Stark, one night. That's me on the left. And you get to see everybody who was hanging out there reading the daily news about prison escapees and all kinds of things. And New York in the late 70s was, in a financial crisis. The famous Ford to the City dropped dead. There was a lot of crime, the graffiti in the subways, but I had found this kind of safe, warm place to photograph. And thank goodness, it's became my home away from home, my third place, as it was for many people after home and work, a place to hang out with their friends. And what's important to me about this photograph is it shows on the table, I had a big manila envelope with my discarded prints. So I would photograph, develop the film, print pictures, and I'm burning and dodging in the darkroom. It's not the same control I have with Photoshop now, where if you make an error, you just step back. Or AI, as the case now is seeming to be. You just tell it, get rid of the, make it look perfect. Wow. Not that I'm condoning AI, but I have an envelope with photographs, and I gave out photographs to people. So I became very popular there. I would walk in and people were calling me over to their table, buying me cheesecake, just take my picture and make a 8x10 glossy for me to, send to friends and give out. And so who knows where my photos are? People, might know someone who has one of my photos. The people who worked there, particularly this young man, all wanted to have a photo of them taken. He was a busboy working the tables, and he was really happy for the attention of me photographing him. One of these, you see, one of the gentlemen has a photo that I've given him, and wanted to take a picture of him with his, shaking with his hand, the camaraderie with the workers. A lot of people wanted me to take photographs of them with the boss on the cafeteria or the manager, probably to send back to families. And in each photo, you get an idea in the background of this place was huge, maybe 100 feet or more deep. Different areas, all kinds of different lighting, tables, and there was everything in there. You could live in Dubrow. I like this because sometimes people are interested in the process, especially younger people. What you was shooting, and had developed the film at night. I had no idea. I would take a picture. I had no idea if I was getting good photographs. I would develop them. I still didn't have any idea. I'm looking at the negatives. I shot 35 millimeter. I also shot 2 1/4. I had a twin lens reflex camera, and I had a camera that shot 2x3 negatives, bigger negatives. But it was a little unwieldy to use it. And I was trying to capture more things, on the sly, capture life as it was happening. But I like that it has the reflections of my shirt and everything with the negatives. Now, and then that's 1975. So my book of these photographs came out in 2023. What was happening in between? Well, I was caring for these negatives. I was making sure they traveled with me carefully wherever, I moved. And I think, actually, I know because I kept a journal back in the day. And I always said I wanted a book someday of these photographs. So, but I went into education for 25 years, teacher, and that was good. I actually used my skills a lot in education. I became the tech coordinator. I taught people how to use digital cameras and make little movies with their students. And so it worked out all right. But the day I retired 10 years ago, I scanned those negatives. I printed them up 8x10, hundreds of them. And then the pandemic, and I signed a contract with Cornell University Press to make a book, and then the pandemic hit. So this book was made in the pandemic. And when I thought I was going to be going up to Ithaca, to Cornell, to work with them, and somebody was going to work with me on laying out the pictures, I ended up in a friend's house upstate alone, laying out the whole book. So everything was done remotely, which is how books now are done anyways. So, but that was really a joy to this part, laying them out, pairing what would be on facing pages, what would get its own page. I just love doing that. And I'm actually working on a book about Brighton Beach in Brooklyn now. And I just did a similar thing where I laid out the pictures in the same space. And it, it gets you really excited seeing things next to each other and that this could possibly be a book. So I jump back to this picture because this was a restaurant. How could you not talk about the food for a moment? And Dubrow's was an interesting place. It was started by a Russian Jewish immigrant back who came around the turn of the century. And a lot of times people say it was a dairy restaurant, they say to me. I say, no, look, you could get a roast beef sandwich there or a pastrami sandwich for $2.20. Wow. And then they say, well, it was a kosher restaurant, wasn't it? It was like, there was this feeling that it was and I'm like, no, you can get, a Virginia ham sandwich, or, you could get whatever you want. But you can get dairy dishes as well. And those were the ones that were remembered fondly, especially like these cheese balances on the counter with the applesauce. 70 cents each, $2 for 3 of them. Try to do that at Veselka these days. The restaurant in the East Village that makes great balances. They're like, I don't know, $15, $20, something crazy. But I love this woman, the woman behind the counter, she's wearing a corsage. Everything was done up kind of. It's a cafeteria, you're carrying your own tray, but everything was done up with this little extra touch. And then one day in 1978, there was a sign in the window saying we're closing. And there's going to be an auction of all the contents. And sure enough, there were a lot of pots coming out of that kitchen for sale. And you can see the trays on the floor and just endless amount of things. So what did I do in 1978 when Dubrow's closed? Oh my, where was I going to go? Uh-oh. Okay. I'm paused. Oh, no, I'm not. Oh, okay. Oh, before I went anywhere, I photographed the demolition. And I know that a lot of people in this group love, neon signs. Well, this is a dismantled neon sign. I photographed each letter as it, kind of went to its demise. I don't know where the letters ended up, but this spells out Cafeteria as they took it down. So I started going to the Dubrows in the Garment District, which was also a pretty awesome place and had this amazing mural. Now, I don't know if anyone in this group is in Atlanta or knows anyone in Atlanta, but somebody told me the wildest story a few weeks ago. They showed me on their phone, I don't know if it was real, but they showed me a little photo of this mural that somebody had somewhere and was being sold to a restaurant in Atlanta. Okay, so I don't know. It was just like blew me away. I have no idea. But I just, what a great mural. And I used to bemoan the fact that it was gone and there was only this photo of it, but maybe it'll exist. And It's a really, I've researched the story of this mural. It has elements of the ship, the Normandy, which was very elegant and had murals in it. I've traced who did the original designs for it. It's a whole story. And I've seen also, this was in the 1939, the French pavilion at the New York World's Fair. There was a version of this mural, and here it is in Dubrow. So you could probably just write an entire article about this mural, which I hope to do someday if I can get all the information in. But the garment district Dubrow was really for the guys in the garment district. I didn't make the same amount of friends there like I did in Brooklyn one. There were all these guys huddled over a table, salesmen or jobbers or whatever, like probably determining whether next year was going to be mini or maxi skirts and how much fabric they'd have to order. And, they had their cigars and they were sharing industry gossip in this great mid-century modern restaurant. I mean, also, the mural and the space age lighting and a swoosh in the ceiling, and what a great place. I went to some of the other great places. Everybody always asks me, did you go to the automats? Yes, I did. But by the time I got to them, they were just horn and hearted cafeterias. And this one on 57th Street. I like the contrast of the two men, one, reading the New York Times, the other's reading the Russian newspaper with his collar up, kind of a little down and out, and the other guy has like the scarf. And that's what it was like on, 57th Street. But none of those cafeterias came close to the community that I had built in Brooklyn Dubrow. I started going across the country, like some of your guys who do road trips. Cafeteria road trip, Philadelphia, where the Horn and Hearted started. And I found this couple in the back. They were practicing for a play. She has the script and he was the director. And when I said, could I take your picture? They just turned around. He had this wonderful hair and pose. I went to lots of places across the country. And I'm just going to end now, I'm almost done, with just a few slides where I show you some things that remain today from cafeterias. Here in New York, the Towers Cafeteria was taken over by the Odeon restaurant. McNally, who just wrote a memoir book, and that cafeteria sign still exists. You can see the Freedom Tower in that picture, and it's lit up every night at the Odeon restaurant. I recently was in Asheville, where they turned that wonderful building of the S&W cafeteria into a food court. But they try to keep some of the architectural details. And now you can get, farm dogs and buy a hamburger at a place called Bun Intended. Okay. Los Angeles, when you guys go next year, so the Clifton's cafeteria has somebody wrote a book about it. It has a long, interesting history, and it still is on Broadway, the building. I was there in 1974 when they had covered over the building and took that picture. And I wasn't there in 1932, but it started out as this amazing cafeteria. So that's a cafeteria relic that still exists. And my favorite, right here in New York. So on the Lower East Side, there was a cafeteria called the Garden Cafeteria with just the most wonderful typography on the word cafeteria. And it's one of the few cafeteria signs that remains. It's on the bottom right, it's in the Museum of Eldridge, which is an old synagogue in New York. they said, okay, we'll take the old cafeteria sign, but we don't have room for the entire length of the sign. So they cut it in half, and it's on two sides of a stairwell that goes down to the restrooms. Okay, at least it's preserved. And my hope is someday it will be reunited with itself somewhere. So if you're interested in seeing more, I have a book. You can find it online from your favorite independent bookseller, a not so independent one that, you know, where they'll send it to you the next day. Have to give them that. Or it could be bought from Cornell University Press. It's on their website. Follow me on Instagram. I try. Check out my website. You'll see the Brighton Beach pictures I've just put up. And send me an email. I send out a newsletter every now and then, and I love hearing from people. Oh, and okay, a moment of bragging. The book won 2 awards. Like, oh my God. A National Jewish Book Award and a French Photography Book Award. So
Wow,
that's all.
that's amazing, Marcia. 2 awards. But I can see why. With the quality of the photos that you have in there, it's remarkable. It's so evocative. I was really affected actually by a number of your pictures. We have some questions, Marcia, but I just want to say one thing to the audience first. You'll see, well, Marcia has her slide up here, that most people, including myself, would say Marcia or Marcia. But in fact, I was informed by Marcia that in fact the pronunciation is Marcia. So that I'm not mispronouncing her name, I'm actually pronouncing it correctly. So that's just a little side note. Anyways, we do have a bunch of questions for you, Marcia. Now, could you stop sharing your screen so we can see you full time here? Oh, that's great. Okay. So we have a question from Nancy Stern, who is a longtime member of the SCA. She goes, Marcia, you showed us one image with food. Do you have any of the bountiful cafeteria spreads? I'm curious about what that would look like. For example, steam tables of various vegetables, salads, entrees, like we had in the South. I know that Nancy grew up in Atlanta, I believe.
So 2 things about that. That's yes. What was really appealing for me was that culinary historians were interested, and of course, interested in the foods. Were there any recipes? Unfortunately, not really. But yes, I have some of the counters, some more of the signs that show, you know, the foods. One interesting point about the salads and the foods, I photographed also a lot of the signs, was, as I mentioned before, people said it was, you know, wasn't it a Jewish style cafeteria? You know, but no, it appealed to everyone. Everybody was welcome there, and it was, you know, all kinds of foods. And one of their specialties, one of their specialties was gefilte fish, you know, the Jewish foods, kashavanishkas, but their specialty sandwich was shrimp salad. So yeah, I do have pictures of these signs and of shrimp salad sitting there. It doesn't look like much in a photo of shrimp salad. But this was a time, and somebody did a little history, you know, that shrimp was starting to be imported and sold. And apparently, you know, it became very appealing to people. And I know my mother, you know, and her first shrimp salad sandwich was at Dubrow's. But the second part of that, when you talk about the South, we used to go down to Savannah a lot. My husband's family, we'd get off of the plane and we'd make a beeline to Piccadilly Cafeteria where we would have a vegetable plate. So thank you, Nancy. Yes, the foods in the South were amazing. And I have one crazy photo of, I don't know which cafeteria it was. We started to go to all of them. And I have a display of Jellos, blue, red, green. Yes. So yeah.
I'm sure that Nancy has been to that
Yes.
cafeteria that you just
She's
mentioned.
shaking her head, yeah.
I have a question myself, which I'll ask before we go on, because it's kind of a follow-up. And that is, I was surprised when you mentioned that Dubrow's. So I was saying Dubrow's, but it's Dubrow's, right?
No, Dubrow's.
Okay. Oh, yeah, Dubrow's. That's
Yeah.
right. I was saying Dubrow's. That they were not a kosher restaurant and serving only kosher food. Now, I know your book is about Dubrow's, but have you done any research or anything on the whole kind of cafeteria scene in New York and ones that perhaps did cater only to a Jewish clientele?
And so the last cafeteria that I showed, the Garden Cafeteria, that one was on the Lower East Side. That was next to the Forward Building, the Yiddish newspaper building. So that was a kosher cafeteria. That cafeteria was really well known because the writer Isaac Bashevis Singer, who won a Nobel Prize, would go there a lot. So that particular cafeteria, and there were some others on the Lower East Side, there were dairy cafeterias in New York, hundreds of them. Somebody, Ben Katcher wrote a book about just the dairy cafeterias. They would be kosher milk products and certainly not have any meat. So by virtue of that, they were people who wanted a more kosher atmosphere would go to them. But it's kind of interesting how it was a neighborhood where of Irish, Greek, Italian, but it somehow became known as, maybe the gefilte fish sign inside, it became known as the quote Jewish style cafeteria. And I have to correct people all the time when they write about it, like on Facebook. Oh, the kosher Dubrow's cafeteria. No, shrimp salad's not kosher.
Well, I actually was just going to ask you that. So when you were there in the younger day and taking all the pictures, and by the way, I think it's great that you have pictures of yourself in the pictures, either reflections or actual pictures of yourself. Was the clientele primarily Jewish, or was it mixed up? Lots of different types of people.
Oh yeah, definitely Italian. I used to talk about the Italian horn. The guys would wear. There were guys wearing that. Irish, definitely. No, it reflected the neighborhood, which I think the guy in one of the first pictures was gazing out the window. I think he's Greek.
Okay.
People always say, "Oh, that Jewish guy," but then I think to myself, I don't want to go there, but I do think he was Greek.
Huh. Well, that's great. All right, we have a question from Randy Turner. He says, were the cafeterias owned by one or more families? Or now you mentioned that Dubrow's was a chain of 4, but were these in basically independents? Are they part of chains, or how did the ownership of these things work?
Yeah, so I've actually interviewed the family and met many of them. That was a family-owned cafeteria, Dubrow's, passed from the father to the sons, and that it stayed in various people in the family managed it, and a little bit of turmoil, as with family stories, of course. Many of them were like the Astor Cafeteria. I did a talk and somebody came up to me and said, that was our family cafeteria,
Oh, no. Wow.
different name, and I'm like, and they were thrilled that I had picture, some postcards and matchbooks. So a lot of them were, a lot of them then were corn and hardwood was, started by individuals, but, uh, was grew into a much bigger chain. So there was some that were chains, and there was some that were individual, just one-off cafeterias.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Interesting.
it varied.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, it's just so different from, today where it's all huge fast food conglomerates that, although I have to say, when you were showing the pictures of the people just sitting there, maybe with one cup of coffee, as you say, between two gentlemen, or maybe just having a glass of water, the replacement is the coffee shops of today, the Starbucks and so on, where people go with their laptops. Although there's no laptops, they were reading newspapers in those days, and they just
Yeah.
sit there for hours and have a cup of coffee. So I mean, it survives in that form.
Yeah. Yeah. There was I've collected articles. There was a protest when they closed a Starbucks because it was the local hangout for a
Yeah,
bunch of people, and go figure that you um but these were unique establishments, the cafeterias. Dining and food has changed all of through the years. So, and things are changing now. Food courts are becoming popular. So, um, you know, different kinds of ways people like of dining.
yeah. Now we have another question. This one's also from Nancy. She says, or she asks, what time frame are the Brighton Beach photos, from the 70s, 80s, or are they recent?
Well, so I had a job back in 78 to 80, where I was in a federal program as a photographer, a federally funded arts project, akin to the WPA, but it was called the Cedar Project in the 70s. And one of my assignments was to photograph the Russian emigres to Brighton Beach. So I have all of those. There was slides. I made a slideshow about that neighborhood. And then because I live in Brooklyn, over the years, I've been going to Brighton Beach, kind of following it. And then I had an assignment to go back to Brighton Beach. And what's it like today? Who are the immigrants that are coming there today? What changes? What's the same? So most recently, I've been photographing Brighton Beach now. But I had this unique opportunity when the neighborhood changed from being an old, predominantly Jewish neighborhood to a neighborhood of the Russian Jewish immigrants. So that was interesting.
Yeah, very much so. Now, Nancy, I don't know if you're still online, Nancy. You asked two questions. Did you want to come on and ask Marcia anything
No, no, not
else?
really. I'll just say, Marcia, I think I'm from Atlanta, but I don't know the answer to your question about that I don't live there now. I have a brother there I can ask, but I found your presentation to be delightful. The way you kind of go through it and kind of I don't know, talk about the people, but the photos, I love your style, and I just will follow you on Instagram, although I'm not much on there. Anyway, great show, great everything. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
You.
Thanks, Nancy. Well, that's all the questions we had. I just have one comment. I was really surprised when you showed the very sad pictures of the cafeteria sign being taken down and meeting an uncertain fate, but we probably know what happened to it. I'll tell you one thing, that wouldn't happen these days. These sign, anything with neon in it is worth its weight in gold. There's collectors out there that would snap that thing up like you wouldn't believe it. And there's also, of course, a number of big museums that would take that kind of sign as well. So if you know any other cafeterias that are closing and they're want to get rid of the sign, you can tell them don't trash it, because we know people that want this. Well, I'd like to thank you, Marcia, so much for this presentation. It was excellent. Now we're very pleased to offer you a one-year membership in the SCA complimentary, which will get you 6 of our annual publications and access to all the Zooms and all sorts of other stuff in your mailbox. I will be in contact with you about that. And just before we go, I would like to just remind everybody about next month when on Wednesday, August the 13th at 8 Eastern and 5 Pacific, we will welcome Rolando Pujol, who will introduce us to the Great American Retro Road Trip, a celebration of roadside Americana. And this new book just out is Rolando's coast-to-coast celebration of the nostalgic pleasures of America's vintage signs, quirky roadside attractions, and offbeat fast food relics. Now, SCA members will be getting the relevant details and registration link by email, and others can register through the SCA website directly. And I'd like to thank our guests for spending some time with us. If you're not a member of the SCA, you can expect an email shortly inviting you to join the SCA. Now, Marcia, I'm kind of combining both Marcia there, combining both now. Marcia, just before we sign off, is there anything else you'd like to say? Oh, we have actually, just before you do that, we have one of our viewers, Sarah Rothschild, put her hand up. Let me just unmute you, Sarah. Okay, there we go. You should be good to go now, Sarah.
No, I just sent the clapping emoji.
Oh, okay.
Really
All
good
right. So that was a
speaker.
clapping.
Thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you everyone for hanging in there to the end. Thank you, Dana.
Okay. Well, again, thank you, Marcia. That was a very good presentation. Can you just remind the audience once more where they can get the book from?
It's available by all the major, you put in Kibbitz and Nosh, Kibbitz and Nosh, and it'll come right up in your local bookstore, can order it. The big online one, sometimes they run sales on it. Cornell University Press runs sales sometimes. But I tried to keep the book as economical as possible also, because I'd like to see it get into as many hands as possible.
Oh,
So
we would too. And that's a worthwhile objective, no question. All right, well, with that, I will remind everybody that the recording of this presentation should be up. They usually get them up tomorrow morning. So if you have friends, relatives that didn't have a chance to see it, you can always refer them to the SCA website and it'll be right there. And I will look forward to seeing everybody next month for our presentation with Rolando. And with that, I will bid you good night.